Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The Auburn Tigers getting it done on the 2024 high school recruiting trail, landing four-star cornerback Jalyn Crawford, and he was one of the more coveted prospects in this 2024 class. You take a look at the offer sheet, was a top priority for the Florida Gators, a top priority for the LSU Tigers. In Auburn, Hugh Freeze and company come in and land a massive commitment. We're going to talk a little Jalyn Crawford. We're going to talk a little bit about how I think this recruiting class for Hugh Freeze in Auburn is coming along. Now, before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys, especially the Auburn fans. You guys have shown a ton of love to the boys, and we just took a deep dive into this Auburn program heading into 2023. I'll link that up there for you guys. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on our thoughts of this Auburn Tigers program heading into 2023. But really, for real, appreciate all the Auburn fans for rocking with the boys. We've talked a lot of Auburn football this offseason. It is no secret. The fellas are very high on what Hugh Freeze can do for this Auburn program. And you guys have been rocking with the boys in a big way. So we appreciate you guys there. Let's get into Jalyn Crawford, though, and then we'll move on and talk about what this class is coming along to be. Jalyn Crawford's an interesting guy. I think you dig into the film, and we'll get into it in a second. The first thing I would describe Jalyn Crawford as, I have two words probably. One, really polished. And that's rare at this cornerback spot because a lot of times cornerbacks who are coming into college play a lot of wide receiver, aren't specialists at that cornerback world. Jalyn Crawford, although plays on both sides of the ball because he's kind of a freak athlete, you can tell he is a very polished cornerback. And another thing you'd add is the instincts are off the chart. Like whenever he's just miraculously in the right spot at the right time, he has a very, very good feel for that position. And that's a really underrated trait for a cornerback, right? You love to hear about the length and the straight line speed. Having just a polished cornerback who knows how to play the position is something that gets a little overlooked, especially on the recruiting trail. When you're just looking at physical traits for the most part, Jalyn Crawford's going to come in, and he's a guy that seems like he's going to play really, really early for the Auburn Tigers. And getting into the film, and one more thing I'd add before we get into it, he's a guy that plays a lot in the nickel. And when you look at Ron Roberts and what he wants to do, Auburn's new defensive coordinator, he likes to have that star position, right? A nickel defender who can line up around the ball, can play man coverage in the slot, can do a lot of different things. Jalyn Crawford seems to be a guy that could do that at a high level for Auburn. So I would be very interested if Ron Roberts and that defensive staff kind of sold Jalyn Crawford on, hey, man, you can be that kind of hybrid defender for Auburn. And I'm not saying he can't play boundary corner because I think he would be a phenomenal boundary corner, but you see him line up a lot in that nickel, and he's really, really good at it. So firing up the film here, though, the first couple things you see is just like the instincts, reading quarterback's eyes, breaking on the football, really good ball skills here. Like he just, sees the route before it even comes, steps in front of it, pick six. He's a playmaker, knows how to make those plays. And this is the next play is kind of what I talk about when you talk about instincts. Like he knows what is going on with this play before it even happens, right? Sees the wide receiver screen, ball in the air, makes a play, and goes and finds the football. Another thing I'd note, he's very comfortable playing press man coverage, but he's also very comfortable playing off coverage and driving on the football. So in terms of scheme, he's a guy that's very versatile. You're going to see him play a little bit more press man here, but he's also a guy that you'll see him play off the line of scrimmage and be able to break on the football as well. But this is perfect, right? Gets his head around, finds the football, and goes and makes a play. You rewatch that play again, and you see so many young cornerbacks, when that football is in the air, they panic, right? And you see a lot of pass interferences. You don't see them play the football. He does this perfectly, right? Sticks with this on that back hip, goes, turns his head, finds the football, and goes and makes a play on the football. That is, so as a Michigan fan, when we've had a lot of cornerbacks struggle with that, it's really nice to see him be. And then there you see the instincts again. The ball just miraculously finds Jalyn Crawford, and he makes a play. He's a really exciting player that just understands this cornerback position. And this is what I mean as a star, right? Lining up around the line of scrimmage, blitzing, getting downhill. He's a dude that can make a lot of different plays, coming off the edge, getting a forced fumble, almost coming up there with the recovery. And then look at him chase down the play. Like this dude has a motor on him. Now you get to see him play a little off coverage where he gets to break on the football and make a play. This is a guy that really, really exciting. And I want to dig into what this Auburn class in 2024 looks like, because it's been a slow start, right? This is their 11th commitment in the class. They're sitting outside the top 30 national recruiting. That being said, this is something we've talked about a lot. For the Auburn fans that have been rocking with us, you probably already heard this. You could probably skip through my 30-second spiel on the Auburn recruiting. For the new Auburn listeners, my take on Auburn's recruiting is I think Hugh Freeze took a look at this roster that Brian Harsin left in the spring and said, we got to start winning some football games in 2023. So instead of some other programs like Alabama and Georgia who already have their rosters kind of in place, they started recruiting the high school ranks. I think Hugh Freeze spent a lot of his resources and time recruiting guys out of the transfer portal to have a team in 2023 that can be competitive. And Hugh Freeze knocked it out of the park. I mean, our take on that transfer portal that Hugh Freeze got 10 plus starters through the transfer portal in this class. And so I think the high school recruiting maybe got put a little bit on the back burner. And now it's going to start ramping up as he gets in, he digs his teeth in to this 2024 class. And the biggest thing I'll say is Auburn is going to attract talent. It's going to attract more talent when Auburn is competing for SEC titles, competing for national titles, back where that program belongs. And I think Hugh Freeze understood that. So Hugh Freeze says, we got to start winning some football games, turn around this depth chart. And Brian Harsin left this place, especially on the offensive side of the ball, in a very bad spot. And so Hugh Freeze addresses that and gets some really good guys on the defensive side of the ball too. This team looks like they'll go 7-5, potentially 8-4, 9-3. Like this will be a competitive team in the SEC. I really do believe that. If you start winning some games, Hugh Freeze shows that this thing's going in the right direction. Just like Hugh Freeze ended that 2023 class, he's gonna was flipping guys like Keldrick Falk. I wouldn't be surprised if Auburn can get that spatula out again and start flipping some guys later on in this process as Hugh Freeze gets some more guys on campus this fall for games, starts winning some football games. And that's not even like, you take a look at this class and I'm kind of a fan of it. Like the depth of this class is really good. You have your quarterback of the future and Walker White, who was a massive, massive get for Clemson. You have some really good guys on the defensive side of the ball. Joseph Phillips was a guy from Booker T. Washington that we talked about. He's got some really exciting film. You add Jalyn Crawford into the class. This cornerback room, not only is the secondary room going to be elite in 2023 for Auburn, if we were very high on this group, they got some nice ads in the cornerback room in this 2024 class. Bryce Kane, another guy that you feel really good about. The depth of this class is there. Now what's kind of missing is Auburn adding some of that elite talent. And we said this before, a guy like Cam Coleman who committed to Texas A&M, we know what's going on down in College Station at Texas A&M. That situation could have looked a lot different in a couple months. If Auburn can start winning some games, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, and that Hugh Freeze offense looks explosive, take a look at some of that top-tier talent, some of those 5 stars, top 100 dudes, taking a look at Auburn and saying, all right, I can see this place being a place where I can be a playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. That's when Hugh Freeze gets the spatula out and starts flipping some of these guys. So if I'm an Auburn fan, I'm patient with this class because I really do think it'll come together. It'll just come together a little bit later than some of these other Power 5 teams who didn't need to attack the transfer portal as much as the Auburn Tigers did heading into this 2023 season. Rounded out on that, but Jalyn Crawford, a massive cornerback that checks all the boxes physically, but when you turn on the film, you're getting a guy with instincts, and he's a playmaker, and he's a very polished cornerback. Appreciate the Auburn fans checking the boys out as usual. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.